Hey World Division fans, this is your global original, Nashtaters, bringing you back another episode of World Divisions. Today we're going to go over masteries, we're going to go over exactly how does EX job work, and I'm going to do it right here with you step by step. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the action. We'll begin with mastery. What exactly is it? Well, essentially what it is the game is trying to emphasize on the idea that you should be building multiple units of the same element. Therefore, your teams are going to get bonuses. Essentially what the game is trying to do is forcibly, perhaps, get us to play with units of the same element. Currently, right now, it's acting as a bonus, in which case you get something really nice if you defeat a specific content using units of the same element. I.e. currently you can get a +3 rod for your unit if you use all light elements under the difficulty of brutal challenge. So what does that mean in the future? Well, it means a few things. One, do you remember that episode of Friday Free Thinking that I talked about how the gap between free-to-play players and spenders are getting smaller? Well, turns out it's actually getting bigger. Mastery wasn't something they actually talked about, but it is implemented, and as you can see, if I just click on something like this, it shows you that number of units owned and current total level done. So essentially, the more units you build, the more number of units you own means more bonuses you're gonna have for your team. Alright, now that we finally talked about masteries and how maybe it's not really that gonna be a big deal in the future, even though the game is leaning towards that direction, time will ultimately be the indicator if it's going to be successful or not. Let's go ahead and talk about EX. Essentially, what you must do is you must have all of your jobs at 15, in which case your unit must be level 99. And then they're going to give you this. They're going to tell you what you need as terms of broadstone, and what you're going to need in terms of these, and what you're going to need in terms of fragments. So essentially, as you can see, I have tons of things, and I only have one broadstone. So I'm going to go ahead and spend it on Mont because, well, why not? Ask you if you want to unlock job, unlock. And voila, now we're here at a different window. So essentially what EX job is, it can take your character all the way up to EX job 25. Therefore, you can actually open up the grids, which I'll go over shortly here, in which case you can level your unit all the way up to 120. Alright, as you can see, here we are, essentially a pyramid, and we're going to go over every single grid, just because, well, we can. As you can see, each little grid requires some JP and a specific material, which you should be able to obtain from your tickets, which the game is, well, very generously giving us. And the first couple of levels are just going to be stats, and of course they don't require a whole lot of these. But then, max level unit +2, so you can get up to level 120. No, what am I saying? 101, right? You could go to 101 here, because it'll be 100 and then 101. As you can see, it does take a little bit of materials, and this one will give it to 102, a little bit more materials. And then, as you can see, the first tier is fairly cheap. Let's take a look at the second tier and see what we can get from Mont. Looks like it's just a tad bit increase. Damage limit up by 100, and then finally Killer Blade enhancement. So this is essentially enhancing the skill that already exists. Enhances Killer Blade to Killer Drain Blade. Okay, deals damage and bestows Man Eater and absorbs damage. That's pretty good. It's kind of like Drain Force. Looks like it's probably based off of damage rather than like your HP, right? And the next tier you can get it to +3 level. So it looks like we're going to be 105 here, and then here we're going to be 107. And then 110 is where it ends on the third tier. Again, a little bit more boost in terms of the materials required. Here it is, Stone Throw enhancement. Enhances Stone Throw to Stone Throw Mastery. I call it Mountain Throw because essentially he's throwing an entire mountain at his enemy here. Increases own defensive piercing rate, deals small damage and guaranteed hit, and lowers move by 1. I think that's pretty powerful given the fact that most tanks are going to be don't have a lot of high moves. So shortening their distance is perhaps not as good as immobilize if you think about it. But the fact that it's a guaranteed hit and it has defensive piercing rate increase, that's pretty sweet. And then it looks like you're gonna get to what do we say? 105, 110, something like that. So it looks like it's 115 here, and then the final one should be 5. Yeah, so here's 120. And the final move is deals damage to targets within range and lowers attack. Wait a second, is this even good? I don't know. Breakdown. I don't know if that's really worth it. Is it worth it? I don't know. But anyways, it costs you 1 Blossom of Paradise. And that's the only real requirement. You only need 1 Blossom of Paradise for the entire grid. And essentially you need 1 Broadstone, and you will need some more here and there in terms of these things. But I think the bulk of the cost is actually going to cost from when you're actually increasing the jobs. As you can see, you're going to be needing these tablets. And since I don't have all the resources, we're just going to do one and see what it looks like here. Alright, as you can see, it just takes more materials. But I'm pretty sure it does require more of those leaves here as you get higher and higher. Since I don't have the proper materials to technically speaking make this into a guide, I'm only doing this just to show you guys how to actually start going and how to proceed. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about is the fact that what units is actually accessible for the EX job. Let's take a look. So the initial first wave obviously will include Yuna and Titus. They're limited units. Then you have Rob, Odie, Stern, Odoa, Mont, Balo, and Liart. So Liart is the rare lightning archer, and Balo is going to be the earth. I believe he's a knight or a paladin of sorts. And of course Mont is what I just showed you. Now, which one do I recommend doing? Obviously Titus should be your #1 priority, since he's actually quite powerful, and given the fact that his stats of a UR quality is going to be much greater than perhaps the other ones, I would highly suggest doing Titus. Now obviously if you are a spender, I don't even need to tell you which, because most likely you're going to be doing Yuna and Titus anyways. But if you were to pick between the ones that are not limited, I would still suggest Mont, because one, he's the cheapest in terms of the actual shards, since the game essentially give you all the shards for free, and all you have to do is farm those materials. But farming the materials, I highly recommend farming on Saturday because of the 2x drop. Simply accomplish the stage on your own and then spend a bunch of tickets by simply just spamming your tickets, the skip tickets, and just do it that way. It should only take you a few minutes rather than sitting there grinding it out in multiplayer. But if you have a lot of time, and perhaps multiplayer is the easier way to go since it's going to be free anyways. Balo, I heard great things, and he's supposed to be pretty decent. And Liart, I heard, is actually quite good in terms of being just a rare unit. And bear in mind, the materials needed to actually increase the jobs are not going to be discounted from what I was told. So don't take into consideration that the rarity plays a bigger role in terms of actually gathering the materials. The only difference between these things are going to be the actual broadstones. You will need a rainbow to do an UR, and as you saw, I did a silver one for the MR, and of course the other one's going to correspond to the other rarities. So all in a nutshell, this is how EX works. You gain more stats, you increase a couple of skills as you saw for some units, and then of course you increase damage and what have you. But the biggest takeaway here really is some of the units are actually not really worthy of taking a 120. Simply put, the extra boost in terms of the skill enhancement, it's not really worth it. And I think we need to do probably a little bit more research, even though a lot of people are already giving suggestions which unit to take to specific certain levels. And that's something I'm not really going to think about too much at this time, because right now most likely I'll be tied down and trying to get my unit and my Titus and my Mont to level 120. And starting this Wednesday, Ziza and Eileen will join the ranks as units that can be taken to EX25, and of course Auron will be released on the banners, and of course he will have the ability to go to EX25 as well. Now I'm going to give you my final thought on this situation. A lot of folks felt like the EX job was rushed, and that the game essentially is just trying to monetize a brand new system in which get the spenders to spend more money. And you can't fault people for thinking that, because ultimately that's what it is. But the way I've always been looking at it is RPGs is all about leveling and gaining experience. And EX just a way to kind of sort of reset the game. People level from 1 to 99 and they felt like that should be the end. But the game decided to take it to more levels, in which case you can expand their skill set for their main jobs, increase stats, ultimately increase more damage and healing, and etc. etc. In the future, I'm pretty sure they're going to also increase the sub jobs, which may or may not increase their level caps. I think personally, though, EX perhaps also should have been implemented in year two rather than end of year one. Because the way I look at it is, most people don't even have a lot of units leveled up to 99. And now the fact that we have to grind all over again to get the units that we loved and finally got to 99, now we got to work on them to get to level 120. It's kind of like you could think about the Cold War missile race back in the 1980s. It's never really going to end. At least from our perspective, it feels like it's never going to end. Personally, I don't think that's a great sign of how to approach the game from a developer's perspective. But then again, I don't have any experience making games or developing games. All I could do is judge from my player perspective. Either way, no matter what is it that they do, I hope the companies will learn from the recent outcry from the JP players, stating that too many cost 100 units were being bestowed upon them. And when the players decided to speak with their wallet, the company listened. I implore the community for Global and JP to kind of voice our opinions, to let them know that we are not huge fans of the implementation of the EX job at such an early stage of the lifespan of a game. Maybe year two would have been the way to go. So my personal suggestion to the company is please don't implement anything level cap increase in year two, because that could potentially drive more players away instead of getting them to keep playing or even attracting new players. Nothing feels worse when you're a brand new player and you enter into a game and you realize you have to level so much and you have to farm so much. Even though I feel like culture plays a much bigger role in terms of Japanese players, or you can even say Asian players in general prefer like the super long grind and have some sort of reward at the end. But at the end of the day, why would anybody spend all their time dedicated to a mobile game when there's so much other competitive products out there? I hope Square Enix and Gumi learn a lesson here at the end of 1 year anniversary. Personally, I feel like the 1 year anniversary celebration was actually quite good, especially from the perspective of a, well, as they dub it, an influencer. But as an actual player at heart, I feel like the rushing of things, just giving us freebies to try to soothe our perhaps, well, irritation, is not going to be enough to sustain a game to a 10-year span, according to Mr. Hiroki himself. I guess, as I always say, time will be the final indicator of how well things are done. I think that's all the time for this video. I hope you enjoy the EX coverage. I know there's probably going to be me needing more coverage for it, and actually I implore you to check out Nerdnight channel for more specific detail of individual coverage of post job 16, and he's going to go over perhaps all the materials for you there. Until next time, take care of yourself or your loved ones. Nashtater out of here. Peace.